Hello one and all, and welcome to another Modswell video. I am your host Maxwell. Now I've heard rumours that my videos aren't giving subscribers notifications, so do hit that bell icon to make sure you get notified. But I have done nothing to earn this from new viewers yet, so let's dive into my top 5 mods of the week and see if we can grow the family. First up is the re-release of Anacian's mod Thunderchild, Epic Shouts and Immersion. This new iteration is the optimised version, meaning it runs far smoother and takes up a ton less space, but we will get onto that. For anyone not in the know, Thunderchild is a mod that adds quite a bit to your game. It should be one of the first mods on your list if you plan on making a Dragonborn load order and speccing into those shouts. Additions include 31 brand new shouts with a wide range of effects or utilities to make your time using the voice more rewarding and balanced, 3 abilities that perfectly complement your dragon voice, brand new weapons and items, a library filled with more knowledge, minor edits to High Hrothgar, new pillars added to the world space yet to be discovered. These are used to meditate and focus the power of certain shouts to be more devastating in combat. On top of all of this, there has also been a huge amount of rebalancing to make sure that you aren't overpowered, but you are far stronger than you were at base. To put it another way, NI has fixed how bad shouts were. I genuinely hate being the Dragonborn in game because it seems like a whole bunch of extra work for very little payout in terms of power. Sure, some shouts were good, but I rarely bothered to use them. These edits and a whole bunch more are enough to bring me right back into that style though. At 55 megabytes, I found the original file to be desired, but hard to squeeze in. However, Snipey has managed to get that file size down to 14.5 megabytes with some excellent reworking of textures, having them put all the way down to 512 to 1K pixels. This is a lot smaller than the vanilla 2 to 4K, which theoretically should look much nicer, but let's face it, we've seen these textures, and we know it doesn't matter. Especially as the items edited are under a certain in-game size, which means you won't really notice that drop in pixels without going in for a deep peep. For those of you who don't know, Snipey actually did the same to Apocalypse back in August 2021, which took that file from 72.5 megabytes to 36.8. And just like with that optimization, this one shares an ESP name with the original, which means all of those sweet patches will work regardless of which you choose. But honestly, there is no reason not to use the optimized file for either of these mods. Here's to hoping Snipey goes through a bunch more fan favourites and optimizes them like the hero he is. Actually, whilst I'm here doing a PSA on optimized mods, Bracca has recently done Diverse Dragons, which took it from 231 megabytes all the way down to 54.8 megabytes. What a time it is to be alive! Anyway, back to the mod I'm actually covering. For the best results with Thunderchild, put it in with your other multiple area edits. And as it does change areas, even minimally, I would suggest doing a quick search for patches too. Next up, we will be taking a look at Wolves of the Wild, which is a bundle of Wolves of the Wild fluffy bellyache textures and Wolves reshaped on PC. Wolves of the Wild is a brand new retexture mod for, well, the wolves, but you'd guessed that already. What I really like about this mod is how close it sticks to the vanilla wolf. Sure, it's been reshaped slightly, and definitely has some nicer textures with a more 3D looking fur setup, but overall it sticks really close to the vanilla version. This is good for one reason in particular. I have played with several really great looking wolves, and most aren't too bad. However, they always reshape the wolves that little bit too far. You can go to take a headshot and are left with a huge question mark as the arrow flies directly through the forehead without causing any damage. Honestly, this is less of a problem on wolves and more so the larger animals, but it isn't to say this doesn't happen with wolves. Well, as long as they aren't these ones, as these work perfectly. So I feel like saying it is close to vanilla might be giving you an impression of boring, and I definitely don't mean that. These are quite clearly far above the standard of vanilla wolves. I mean, look at the fluffy little boys. There is a definite effort to make these hairs stand apart from the body, which took me aback a little at first. The wolves themselves are actually made by upscaling the textures on Bellyache's wolves and applying some fluffiness, and it's clearly working. There really isn't much I can say about the wolves, other than how great they look and how nicely made they are, so I will get into the stats. This mod comes in two versions on Xbox. The first is the 1K variant, which is what I've gone with. This is going to set you back 17.4 megabytes versus the 2K variant, which is a much larger 57.5 megabytes. Honestly, my testing showed that on a 1 or 2K screen, the 1K version looks exactly the same. If you step up to a big boy screen like a 4K plus, then you're likely going to want the larger file. Simply slot this in with your other animal textures. If you use my LLO, linked in the description, there is a section for this. If you use the traditional, then I would suggest putting this in with your other graphics mods. Just make sure it's lower than anything covering wolf textures, like an animal bundle for example. Lowest will always take priority. In the third spot, I have gone for the Mac Daddy of all mountain textures. Northfire's Photoreal Majestic Mountains 3, and that is an absolute mouthful. I am using the with moss version, as I think that is the clearly superior option. If you aren't into that moss though, there is a version that has it completely removed. I noticed zero performance between the two files, but there is a huge difference in standard if you ask me. As most of you who have ever even looked at my orders will know, Granite Mountains has been my go-to. Well, it was my go-to I should say, as it has just been dethroned. There is an awful lot of mods in this section that are worth taking a look at, but the main three for me have always been Majestic Mountains, Granite Mountains, and Northfire's Photoreal Mountains. There are other fantastic options, but when you're talking top tier, these are the names that come up the most. And the mod in question is literally a combination of two of these texture sets, which seems like overkill and an unfair advantage over the competition, but there is obviously a downside, and it's the normal one for Xbox players. At 139.8 megabytes for the standard version, or 140.4 for the mossy one, this means it's not easily going to slot into your order. For that cost though, you receive a fantastic texture set that looks natural and shaped over time. The smooths are more rough and look coarse to the touch. The rough sections are less ridiculously flat with 3D edits to the mesh. The improvement on the LOD is so noticeable over most files, however the three top tiers are actually just as good as this. So if you're hoping these will improve your LOD, then I'm sorry they won't if you're already using one of those top tier mods. Although, if your LOD needs some spice on Xbox, then I do actually have a video for that, which I will link right now. Northfire's Photoreal Majestic Mountains 3 is going to take some beating from any other distance though. I think the colour set for it would match really nicely with something like Tamrielic Textures landscapes, and makes a really beautiful world. I know Tamrielic has its own mountains, but they are just much lower resolution, and that is a huge mistake when it comes to these files. Mountains genuinely require a higher resolution than that of other objects in the game to avoid a horrible stretched out look. I know with a cost of around 140 megabytes, using this to overwrite a file is an expensive way to go about your day. But you could throw it below any other file covering mountains and it will overwrite them. I hope this will be added to an ultimate texture bundle at some point so we can see the perfect graphical Skyrim even easier. All the way up in second place I've opted for Wandering Skyrim Followers. This is a really cool way to fix a few common complaints. Wandering Skyrim is adding in 18 statically located followers across Skyrim. The followers all come with their own combat styles and are head and shoulders above the vanilla followers. They perform a nice task of filling out a few locations as well, with inns, shrines, shops and similar locations having a few extra patrons. I haven't ever been hugely into followers, likely due to the blah nature of them in the vanilla game. They're basically just a complainy bunch of door blocking containers, and I think that's fair to say. Modding has seen to this, with many followers being added in over the years, and they vary in quality, with some being an ego and others not being an ego. No, that's unfair. There are actually a bunch of really good custom followers, and I do kind of categorize them, with vanilla, vanilla plus, minor custom and fully custom. This isn't a perfect system, but it lets me sort out what they are. These, for example, are vanilla plus. They are nowhere near as stupid as your standard vanilla and have some of those fixes that make them feel more real. Some unlocked voice lines that aren't used without mods, so they feel fresh and like they fit into the game. They also have combat styles that set them apart. However, they will basically just follow whatever your AI mod tells them is right. This actually makes them easier to use than some of your custom files. They seamlessly slide into your game, and you'd be forgiven for thinking they were always there. The mod itself is going to set you back 108.7 megabytes, which is quite a lot, even for 18 new followers. However, I have used many mods that advertise the same as this one, but they have just been so janky with texture glitches, silent characters, T-posing, and things like this. This one, however, I slotted into my unique followers section and haven't seen a single problem. It's a simple plug in and play. I will say it's hard to justify the cost on a consistent basis, but if you're creating a crew to plunder with, then these are a great way to go about your business. And finally, it's time for my top mod of the week. And this time I've gone for probably my most vanilla top round pick of all time. Pristine Vanilla Movement. This mod is going to redesign the way your character gets around by using miniature edits on the movement animations. The idea behind this is just to smoothen up and straighten out what it already looks like. The vanilla movement actually looks okay, but has these bugs that once noticed can't be unnoticed. Every single one of them has been redone here. From the very way you hold yourself whilst moving being slightly more tucked up like a jogger would move. Running has you less rigid, and it adds a little jiggle, not in like a kind of way, just in a natural looking kind of way. I mean, try walking like a stiff board. These directional changes happen across the board too, so whichever way you decide to move, this has been sorted. Interestingly, it actually covers more of the 8 directional animations than any other mod that does the same thing, so there is a point to using these, even if you prefer the other animation styles. This is because most don't cover the backwards animations. Annoyingly, for most of us, this isn't going to be a huge thing, as we're using some form of 360 walk and run. For anyone who doesn't like 360, then this is easily the better option for you. The author has described the intent behind this mod as removing jitters whilst making the character more bouncy, move far smoother, and having them move more casually. This is a very stylized version of the vanilla movement animations, which uses arcs and changes the posture of the playable character to make them look human. Okay, back to my words. Why should you try this mod out? The way the game plays is designed for the vanilla movement style. This means these animations play extremely easily. Being able to maneuver, especially in those tight spaces, is somewhat easier with this installed. Much the same for combat, where the movement allows you to keep track of enemies so much better. I also think this is one of, if not the most realistic animation set I've seen. It isn't flashy, but it only costs you 401.2 kilobytes. It's also extremely compatible with other mods, including ones that touch on the same things. Slot this into your animation setup in the LLO. Placement will depend on which aspects you like, as animations are easily overwritable by order. If you'd like some help with your animations, then please feel free to ask in the comments. Okay, so I'm going to end it here today. As always, I have left the relevant links in the description, including all of the mods, social areas like my Discord, as well as a subreddit dedicated to Skyrim modding. So many really great people around who can help you out should you need it, and you can easily find me in my Discord should you need some help from me. I've made an office room in there where people can make requests or just ask for help. If this video has been helpful, I would seriously appreciate those likes, comments, and of course subscriptions. These, as well as watching this far into the video, really help push my work out with YouTube's algorithm. But whatever you do, I hope you've had a great day, and thank you all for watching.